checking with Restream that we're going live. Just see how we're going here. Here we go. We appear to be live. Excellent. So welcome back to the Island 54 development stream, where I'm building my survival crafting MMO in Unity 3D and TypeScript in the backend. I have been working on getting the scatter generator ported across to the server and having the client work with it. So we now have trees being being generated on the server and stones, and they're now being displayed on the client. There's one caveat with it though, which is we seem to have, I seem to be sending too much data in UDP. If I can find my window, we're sending too much data in UDP, which is causing us to blow our stack frame, not a stack frame, our UDP frame, and the data is not getting across to the client. So I was intending after stream yesterday to work on getting the client to use a side channel to load all that data, but I unfortunately ran out of time. So I'm going to be doing that on stream today. Just got to find where things are at. Sorry, there's always a little bit of organization for me to do just off on my other screen at the beginning of these streams, just to make sure everything is running smoothly. It does appear to be. Perfect. Okay. So what I did yesterday was I commented out the code that what it was doing was grabbing all of the entities from the entity service, and then it was just converting those into a form ready to be pushed into a UDP packet. I've changed that now to fetch only entities within range of, there's my .query call, within a certain range of the player, which is 2.5 chunks. And then from there, it's going and bundling them up. It's going and sorting them internally by chunk so that it can work out how many entities are going to be in each chunk. Now, I have thought a bit about this, and there is another trick that I could be using here. Sorry, just trying to find where everything is. Here we go. There's another trick I could be using here, which is I could be using the static field that I've placed on my entities, and what I could do is just never send updates for static entities. It's probably a little hard on the server to begin with, but if we only send updates for live for non-static entities, they're the ones that we expect to be changing frame by frame, then we won't be blowing our stack anymore. And instead, we can go and send a thing saying, hey, you need to go and load your static entities if we know that there are static entities changing. So that's the way that I'm going to be able to get a result soonest. It still leaves a lot of problems to be solved later, because there will be occasions where there are too many dynamic updates to send through in a single frame. So I'm really kicking the can down the road here, but yeah, that's kind of the nature of being a single developer on a project this size. You need to work out which problems you are actually going to tackle. So we can see here, this is where the server is able to tell the client that a chunk has been invalidated. And then inside here, we can tell it what kind of invalidation it is. Either it needs to reload the terrain or it needs to reload the entities. So I'm going to go and add another one here, which is static entities. You're not meant to change these constants in a protobuf file, but I've not pushed any changes out anywhere, so it doesn't hurt if I do change these. If I do change them, then certain clients would become not backwards compatible anymore, which would be bad. So from here, I should be able to do a yarn run, I think I called it protoc, which will go and do my protobuf builds. It's complained about something here. Dist no such file or directory. Well, let's just fix that. In the top level services package.json is where I do my protoc. and it goes into Netcode. That makes sense. Netcode. There we go. That'll just create that directory for us. That's better. All right, and then I also need to copy that protobuf file. Well, I created a C# file over in here, so I will just copy that dist slash. It's a bit loud. Dist. What's going on here? Oh, netcode. So it's going to be in common netcode dist i54.cs, and I copy that to my C# project is called demo. That's just what I called it when I started making it before I started creating my videos. And somewhere in here, I guess it's assets, scripts, and then systems, remote, proto. Okay, so that is now over there, and this will probably recompile. Excellent. No point in watching that because I don't intend to do anything with that yet anyway. So back in my Datagram generator, so yesterday when I finished up, I had written this piece of code here. Now what this does is this creates a list of coordinates and the entities that are in that coordinate. Now, I probably do need to put this in a class at this point because this is starting to get pretty messy. I kind of need two of these. I need one for dynamic entities and one for static entities. So what this is going to need to do is it's going to do static that, comma, dynamic that is what I want to generate here. And that will let me look at the sizes. It'll let me look at how many things are changing within a given static entity, or how many static things are changing within an entity, within a chunk, I should say, and how many dynamic entities are changing within a chunk. Well, since I'm kicking cans down the road, I'm going to roll that back, and I'm actually going to ignore static entities. That's a better way of doing it. So let's actually put an extra parameter on my query. So we've got region. Now, normally I'd be able to specify a component here, but I'm actually going to say is static is going to be true. So we're going to send out a request for static entities. I'm going to send out a second request for the dynamic entities. And I have a feeling a lot of the code I did yesterday might have been a bit of a waste with the way I'm going here, but let's just push forward. So I'm just going to send out these two requests. These could be done in parallel. There'd be no harm in that. In fact, it would be better. So let's add this is static field. Come in here and ask it to change that. It's going to add a Boolean. Now if I come and look at this, oh, I'm surprised that is, nope, IntelliJ has done something a bit silly there. It's gone and gone a bit aggressive on its refactor. Static is a Boolean. There we go. This is optional. Don't have to specify whether or not it's static. But I will now need to go into the entity client if I can find it. There it is. And just check that query doesn't need to be updated. It doesn't. It just sends the query parameters through directly, in which case I can just go to the entities controller, find the query method, and in here, what does it do? It just passes the query directly through to filter for query. And this just says if there is, this is generating the Mongo query here. So whenever we specify a region, it needs to go and add entities. Entities. Doesn't sound right. Oh, filter for query. Sorry, this is a post filter. So what I actually want is Mongo query is query to Mongo. So this actually generates a query. So this is what it does if you specify a location. And this is what it does if you specify a component. And in here, if query dot is static is not undefined, I have to be explicit about undefined here. I don't want to detect false cases. Well, I want false cases to fall through here. Then we need to do a Mongo query is static is equal to query is static. Now, I believe my Mongo schema already has that static flag on it. Yes, it does. So I'm going to test that out. Well, I need to actually do something with those results first, don't I? So I have my dynamic entities. I have my static entities. I'm going to take all of this code here. I'm going to put that up a level. I'm going to factor out that sorting code so that I can take my dynamic and static entities and separately sort them into those indexes. I guess it's that code is what I want to refactor. I'm getting IntelliJ to do this for me, and this is going to be build chunk entity index. Then this one is going to be static entities called an index. And let's do the same thing for dynamic entities index. I will just double check that IntelliJ didn't do anything silly when it refactored that code. That all looks exactly right. Excellent. So in here, what's this doing? It's sending chunk updates for dynamic entities. So it just pulls out the pair of chunk coordinates, and I'm not using the second parameter here, which is dynamic entities. And this is just going to generate a chunk update for that chunk. We do also need to specify, got a U, we've got a V. We need to specify that this is a static invalidation. In fact, I'm missing a few fields on this one, aren't I? We look back here, a chunk invalidation has something called a coordinate. This is just completely wrong. I don't know how this was even working. It was probably not doing anything sensible. Coordinate is going to be a U and a V. And I also need an invalidation type, which is going to be what's that called? Chunk invalidation type. Dot. Well, this is not meant to be the dynamic entities. This is meant to be the static entities. Okay. That looks pretty good. Now, ideally, what this code would do is it would go through, it would find the total number for any given chunk, it would find the total number of entities. It also needs to filter for which ones have actually changed since we last sent them through to the client, or since the client last successfully received them. And then it should be counting per chunk how many there are. And once we get above a certain number, we need to start dispatching these chunk updates. Now, I'm not going to do this now. This is what I mean by kicking the can down the road. And then in certain cases, we might say, well, we've got some dynamic entities we want to send out. We've got too many static entities. So we'll just send out these static entity invalidations. And we'll continue sending out dynamic entities. At some point, though, we do need to say, well, we're not even going to send out the dynamic updates. We're going to send invalidations through for that. So that's what this code in here will be doing. But before I do that, I need to send through the rest of this server message. Hello, R&M guy, and welcome back. Currently doing the things I said I was going to do yesterday afternoon, but didn't find the time to do. I am making it so that the client can receive these invalidation requests, telling it to go off and fetch trees and things over a REST endpoint, rather than trying to do those ones over UDP, while keeping the troll updates coming in through UDP. Okay, so what does a server update look like? We've got this entity updates. Go, so let's send through entity updates. And in here, I just want to send through all of the dynamic entities. So I'm not even going to use this index here at this point, but as I said, I will use it later. So I think entity updates was a repeated field, is that right? Entity updates is a repeated field, so this comes through as a list. Now I can probably copy out of my code here. In fact, here it is. It is exactly this code here is what I want. Make sure I've got my brackets right. Entity updates is going to be a dot map, which ends there. So let's try that. Uncomment this code. Okay, I've got missing brackets somewhere in here. Dot map has a return. Am I daring enough to try and tell it to reformat my code? Yep, there we go. Um, Here we go. This is meant to be object dot entries of static entities. Let's make sure that that's correct up here. Yeah, that's just a straight list. So for anyone who's just joined, I'm continuing work on my survival crafting MMO. Currently getting it so that the client can fetch certain entities that don't change often through a side channel so that we don't have to send everything through UDP. That will reserve the UDP channel for the higher priority stuff. And mean I don't have to put a bunch of code in to improve the reliability and things like that. What's wrong here? That's a string. That's not meant to be a string. I know why that's a string. That's because of this object.entries. Yeah, that's a bit annoying here. It's not meant to be object.entries. This is meant to be object.values. My apologies. Because there's two things I got wrong here. All right, let's do a values. Let's not even do that. Sorry, jumping all over the place. This is meant to be the static entities index because that knows all the chunks. So we pull out the chunks out of the static entities index. We send those through as static entity invalidations, whereas the dynamic entities get converted directly into updates. So it's worth noting I'm still not handling the case where there are too many dynamic updates. I'm repeating myself a bit here, but I just need to make sure I've got my head around this. So if I were to run this code now, what I'm expecting to happen is I'm expecting the troll to be displayed correctly if I put a troll in, but I'm expecting no scatter to come through because I don't have the client handling those invalidations yet. So let's just try that out. Make sure my server is running. That looks pretty good. Run this. There'll be nothing there because I don't think I have any trolls in the game at the moment. Then I'll load a troll in. And I don't see him. I think he's meant to appear over here. Oh, here we go. I've got something wrong. Datagram Generator line 1. Wow. That doesn't sound right. I'm just going to get rid of that and get it to re-import automatically. It must be something wrong in the way I'm importing it. It looks the same. I'll restart the server. That crashed. Yep, there we go. There's something very wrong here. Um, I'm going to come, something's not right. I don't trust this line here because this is always just on the first line. So I'm going to look at this line 38. Hmm, this is strange. What if I don't send any packets out? Does it, well, it may not come in here if I don't send any packets out. Okay, let's try something different then. I am going to just create a new version of this. Well, better would be to just comment out my code. Let's do that. I'm not going to do any of the entity fetching. I'm not going to do any of the index building. And all I'm going to do is define an empty message, which is just from JSON, just like that. Run that. And that is running. Obviously, it's not doing anything because the server's just sending empty messages now. Okay, so now I'll just gradually uncomment this stuff out and just see where, I assume it's line 114 that it's actually breaking. Is that running? I don't think that's even running, is it? I don't see UDP-TX. Oh, there's UDP-TX. I think that my session might have somehow died. So I'll just restart the client. We'll start the session up again, and that should make sure that the UDP transmitter is actually sending data. So we come in here. Very strange. Ah, that wouldn't help. That wouldn't help. Whatever that is. Stop. What was my? I must have had an HTTP error somewhere. Here it is. There is something very strange going on here. Okay, I'm going to make sure that I'm in a completely clean environment. So I'm going to wipe away the database. I'm going to go a little further this time and actually remove, I'm just going to put a colon before my command line here, so that stops it in bash and z shell. That stops it from executing this command because I'm about to do a slightly dangerous command. // node modules. That is a directory. Let's do that one. That looks right. No extra spaces in there. And the same thing for dist. There we go. Now rerun yarn. I'm just going completely from scratch here. We run our server. So this is going to cause it to recompile, well, retranspile all my TypeScript code. Then I'm just going to bring this off screen. I'm just going to start up a client off screen. I'm not seeing anything going wrong in there. Get a breakpoint in there. Oh, that's not where I wanted the breakpoint, is it? Generated. It's construct server message. This is where I want the breakpoint. Although I just killed my server. Okay. There we go. It successfully fetched those entities. I don't know why we're not getting any log messages. I'm going to insert an explicit log message just here. Log.info. I'll do it at .debug. Finished generating server message. I'll just bring that down a line. Okay. So next I'm going to uncomment this line. See if this causes the issue I'm seeing. Hopefully this was just one of my transpiled JavaScript files getting into a bad state. Nope. So it doesn't like something in here. So I'll get a breakpoint in here and just see what it's about to try and do. Static entities, sure enough, we've got hundreds of static entities. That's what we expected. It is going to do a reduce over that using an initial value of open brace, close brace. That's fine. Then it is going to go over each of the static entities. Well, let's get a breakpoint inside here. Actually see it dropping in here. Beautiful. Here we have a valid chunk, which is the origin. So it's going to step down. We pull out the U and the V coordinates for the chunk. Easy. Hello again, Arendem guy. I take it you popped off for a bit. I'm not sure what's going on here. I'm just going to fill in some types where I noticed them missing then, just in case TypeScript is getting confused. Okay, it doesn't like that. Yes, that one there should be an index, I think. Is that right? Just double check what my index type is. Oh, here we go. These are not meant to be objects like that. I have no idea how that didn't fail at compile time. Sorry, what am I doing here? I've got two different kinds of index, don't I? I've got something that I'm going to call a nested index, and I'm going to call this other thing a flat index. Now, the flat index is a chunk coordinate followed by entities, and it is an array of those. Okay. Now, build chunk index is going to return a flat index. That's the whole point of that operation, is just to get this list of entities by coordinate. Okay. So entities by chunk component is going to be a nested index. That needs to be a nested index. This one needs to be a nested index. Then this one here is going to be a flat index. This is a flat index. Let's just stop. Flat index, and then this as flat index. Okay, so I think I've been explicit about all my types here. This looks okay. I could be even more explicit and define a new inner index and actually just have that. I'm just trying to get rid of as much of the type inference as I can from TypeScript. Now, in this case, all right, we've already said that that's an inner index. Down in here, yep, that is an inner index. I don't think it'll let me define this actually. No, it doesn't like me defining that. So I'll let it interpret that. All right. Does this work? Failing this, I'll have to look up that error message on Stack Overflow because that error message is making zero sense to me. It's like it's crashing somewhere in this code here and then giving me an error on line 1. Okay, connecting the client, just off screen. line 40. It really doesn't like that reduce. All right, hopefully Stack Overflow can help here. Where is a browser window? My error was type error, intermediate value is not iterable. Ooh, okay. So this answer is saying all sorts of things about async and destructuring, which feels relevant to me. Their example is React, which I don't really want to try and read at the moment because it's going to take too much of a context shift in my head. Okay, so I'm just going to review this code here. It's almost certainly failing on this line, but that could mean it's failing inside this expression. Do I do any assignments? I mean, I kind of do an assignment here. Let's just get a breakpoint. So we are definitely getting through to this line. I don't think I ever tested this line yesterday. Now, result is empty. So we know that results you, well, let's just ask it to evaluate this expression. Ask it to evaluate that expression. Ah, here we go. This is actually a syntax error. I don't know why we're not getting the correct error out of this, but this is the error I'm after. Rest parameter must be last formal parameter. That is just saying that this line needs to be down the bottom. Oops, what did I just press? Stop the server. That was a bit frustrating. So in here, that needs to be the last parameter in that object. So let's do that. And I assume we're going to have exactly the same issue in here. No, not in here because this is a list. That's okay. You can do those in whatever order you want. Let's do that. And hopefully that's fixed the error. That was, if that's it, that was really nasty. And that is definitely a bug in TypeScript because I don't see why else it wouldn't be able to give me a syntax error. It's as if it's throwing an exception and the reduce is swallowing it and doing something silly with it. But I'm still arguing, like any good tradesman does, that it's a tool problem. Let's see. I'm trying to find my client. Let's just get we'll get this showing the debugger properly. You guys probably can't see that very well. Hold on. And it's still dying. Stop that. Let's get, pull up my OBS so that I can see what you guys. Oh, that's not meant to go on that screen. That can lead to all sorts of problems. End up with nesting all the way down. Okay, can you guys see this now? Yes, you can see it. Still not working. I'll evaluate this expression. Unexpected token colon. Only got 2 colons in here, don't I? All right, coffee. I'm just going to try evaluating a couple of expressions that are, just get this moved around, that are kind of similar to this. So obviously I can evaluate an empty object. That's fine. Good morning, Griffic, and welcome back. Currently fighting with TypeScript. It doesn't like this expression here. It is either something to do with this assignment or this assignment, this attribute or this attribute. And unfortunately, Node is stomping on the error message coming out of this. So, okay, U is a valid value, V is a valid value. Now, I believe that we are allowed to say, U colon whatever, and we sure can. I believe we are allowed to say V whatever, and indeed we can. What about, am I allowed to say ... result? Well, hang on, let's check what result U ? V, I believe should be undefined. It is. Then if I do a list of undefined, 42. Doesn't like that. I thought that was legal. Oh. ... or question mark. Didn't think of that. But regardless, this doesn't seem to be working either. I could have sworn that was legal. I'm going to be explicit about that then, and also do that. That way, if that is undefined, then we'll get an empty list. Let's do the same thing here. I'm just going to be completely explicit about the order of operations, and I'm going to give it no excuse not to work. Result is always defined. It's that. Okay, does that fix the error? Not hit the breakpoint to see if the code runs. Run. That was it. Thank you again, Griffic. Save my butt again. I could have been looking at that forever. Yeah, ... undefined I also think should work. That's probably just the IntelliJ expression evaluator that's doing that. So let's just do that. Let's just clear that out. Just prove that that's right. I should be able to do... In fact, I'm sure I can get rid of that one. Let's just check that that works. In which case, this whole thing was just a missing bracket. And I had my spread operators in the wrong spot. I forgot that you have to do the dot 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 as the last parameter. Although that's not necessarily true, is it? Ah, no, okay, no, that's... Yeah, I'm going to move these back because I need to make sure that this is going to apply those in the correct order. So I'll do that in a second. Checking the debugger. Something has broken. Not this again. I was getting this yesterday. I'm going to bring up a terminal and just refresh my memory about how spread operators work. If I say x is equal to 0, 1, 42, and then I say that x is going to be equal to, no, I'll do y, sorry, y is equal to dot 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 x, comma, 0, colon, dot 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 x, 1, colon, sorry, dot 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 x0, comma, yeah, that's what I thought, Graphic. I'm just double checking the order that they apply in though. Hang on, this is too silly an example. Let's just do x is going to be 0, colon, 42. And then y is equal to dot 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 x, comma, 0, colon... Oh, it makes no difference what order it applies in. That's the whole point of... No, it does make a difference. I'm going to go 0, colon, x0, comma, 56. That works correctly, but then I also want to make sure that z 0, comma, dot 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 x 0, 56, dot 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 x. That I think will give a different result. Yes, so this does need to move. This one has to come up here. Yes, that's the suspicion I had, Graphic. So this is important that I get that round the right way, not the wrong way. Okay. Now, I'm not sure why this is messing up, so let's just do a stop on Docker. There we go. It's actually stopped. IntelliJ seems unhappy. That's working. Oh, here we go. So I'm still getting, this is the actual error I'm getting, Graphic. It's not making a huge amount of sense. And because it's giving me this up here. I haven't checked this line 192. What's line 192? 192. Okay, this is just the code that logs if something has gone wrong. So the little bit of debugging I've done suggests that Node is actually swallowing an error that's coming out of this reduce operator here. So I believe that if I put some log messages in here, log.info 1, just put some stars before it, make it a bit more obvious. Const new result is going to be equal to that. And then log 2. And then if I run this, see, I don't think this is running at all. Just going to reconnect my client. My client is off screen at the moment just to give a bit more screen real estate. Yeah, no, I don't think it's not a number in this case. I've checked these values in here. See, I've got this other problem, which is that IntelliJ is just not letting this transmitter run. File, I'm just going to restart IntelliJ. That looks better. Looks like it's actually starting up this time. Okay, if I break here, it's definitely there that it's dying. Just restart that. Let's confirm that I'm getting what I think I am. So we're getting the star 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 1 and we're not getting the other thing. Okay. So if I breakpoint in here, I'm just going to manually go through and check each of these things. So we've got result. Nope, my node process has crashed. So let's try that again. I've already seen that result is an empty object. U and V are both defined to 0. So the next thing I'll probably try is actually pull out these spread operators just to see that it can get through. Undefined doesn't spread properly into array. Of course it doesn't, because you're allowed undefined in an array. It doesn't explain why this is behaving the way it is, but let's... Oh, hang on, spread. It's spread, not a value. Hang on. Let's just get a node process up. Find, comma 42. Yep, okay, so you can't do that. That's fine. That's easily fixed with that. Yes, and that would throw an exception. I don't know why Node isn't letting me see the exception, but yeah, that's correct. So it gets undefined. It's trying to do dot, dot, dot. That is apparently not valid. So this should fix it, hopefully. This is a bit more time on this little piece of code than I was hoping to spend. Let's go and run. I don't have any breakpoints. That's running. Wait for the transmitter to start putting, there we go. That's actually working. So I can get rid of the log messages. Something stopped, so I'll just restart everything. Don't return result, return new result. Thank you. I've just very nicely had a coffee delivered, and that's on top of the coffee I'm already drinking, so I'm going to be very caffeinated by the end of this. I better drink up. All right, restart that. I'm going to bring the client back on. I'm going to close that. I'm going to blow away my database, as much as that scares everyone, just so that I'm in a known state. I have no idea how many entities I have. I guess I could hit up the endpoints, but this will just have me in a very clean state. We start the whole thing up again. Yeah, Griffic, in response to your comment, it returns undefined is not an iterable exception. That's not the exception I was receiving. I was receiving an error saying that it couldn't enumerate. Oh, maybe that was what it was saying. Hang on. My error was, yeah, okay, intermediate value is not iterable, but it was putting the wrong line number on it. It was putting it on line 1 of the file, and it made it look like it was having troubles pulling the kind of destructuring an import. So yeah, that was a bit weird. Okay, that's running. I'm going to run the client. Nothing should happen. We should see no scatter, even though we should have lots of scatter in the game. There we go. And then if I load a troll in, we're meant to see the troll run at us, but they are not running at us. So to recap as to why we should see the troll running at us, when we construct the message, have I commented out a bunch of code? Yes, I've commented out a bunch of code. That would do it. Bring that code back in. So what it's meant to be doing is it's meant to be separately pulling out static entities and dynamic entities. So a recap, dynamic entities are the entities that we expect to be changing as often as they don't. Whereas static entities, we're not expecting to change every tick. So this is things like trees and stones, whereas this is things like players and trolls. It goes and builds up these indices. I'm going to be doing other stuff with these indices soon, just to work out how much space we have. We take our dynamic entities and we bundle them up directly into the packet going out to the client, whereas we take our static entities and we convert those into chunk invalidation messages for the client. So what should be happening here is we should be seeing the troll, but not the scatter, because the client doesn't understand invalidation messages yet. Transmitter, is it transmitting? Here he is, here's the troll. Excellent. So that is behaving as I would expect. I'm going to commit those changes. Send static entity updates as chunk invalidations. Then it's into the client. If I can find my client code, do I not have any rider instances? There's rider. Okay, this really needs to be refactored, but that is going to be an off-stream thing. So what does this do? When we get... This is generating the client messages. That's the messages from the client. Here we are parsing a message from the server. We push a pending message off into a variable because this is all happening on some background thread, and we need to do processing, most of our processing on the main thread. Obviously, I should be parsing the message properly on the background thread, but that's a future problem. Here's where we pull the message out, and we go to message received. On message received, okay. I haven't touched this code since I wrote my original netcode, and yeah, I'm so not familiar with this code anymore, which is a bit scary. And it's ugly. So when we receive a message, we just go through the entity updates and it goes and processes them. I also need to go off and fetch and handle any chunk invalidations. So let's do that. Oops. Oh, for each var chunk invalidation in message dot chunk updates. Is that right? Did I call it chunk updates? That seems like the wrong name. Yeah, I'm going to change that. That should be chunk invalidations. Recompile my protobuf. Copy the C# file up. There we go. So chunk invalidations, that's a bit clearer. Okay, so we've got a chunk invalidation. A chunk invalidation has a coordinate. Just jumping around a bit here, just need to see what all these things are. So we've got a UV chunk, we've got a UV coordinate, and then we've got an invalidation type. So I only want to handle entity and static entity types now, for now. We don't have terrain updates happening yet. Sorry, Griffith, I only just noticed part of your comment. The failure to import will happen if you're executing the code inline in the file. Yeah, it was slightly weirder than that because I don't believe it was actually the import error. The error being can't iterate on an intermediate value made much more sense as being the dot 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 result with all the question marks and U's and V's in there. So I think it was just the wrong line number. Even though it was some code being executed inline, it was I think it was confused. I tried rebuilding everything and still got the same problem though, so I'm blaming the tool. All the best coders blame their tools. Okay. For each invalidation in there. All right, so if chunk invalidation dot invalidation type is equal to chunk invalidation type dot terrain, so this is the one we can't process, then I'm going to do a debug.log warning terrain yeah, that makes sense, Graphic. Yes. So in here, we have the ability to specify what type. There are multiple types. So again, I'm going to make a change to my this is a repeated field, so this should be invalidation types. Yeah. Okay, sorry, just off in deep thought. Oh, right. Oops. So let's just pull out the parameters here. I'm going to go, and if there are any entity invalidations, I will go off and fetch entities from the server. But I need to know what kind of a fetch I'm going to do. Is static only. Hello, Aaron Guy. I take it, hang on. I take it you're popping in and out, Aaron Guy. uh, is static. Now, I kind of want this. Can I do that in C#? I think I can. So I want a ternary operator here, a ternary parameter, where it can either be true, false, or unknown. Is all entities, it's null. And then all I'm going to do is go through each of these chunk invalidations in that. If invalidation type is chunk invalidation type dot entities, then is all entities is going to be equal to true. No, yes. Oh, well, these don't need to be optional. Either they're specified or they're not specified. So let's do that. False, false. If we get that, I'm not doing the interpolation smoothing code yet. That will happen. The focus at this point is to get the trolls movement prioritized over things like trees. When the player first comes into the game, they've got lots of entities that need updating. They need to get told about all the trees, all the stones, all the trolls, and all that kind of thing. And a lot of game development blogs will suggest approaches to make UDP packets extensible so you can have multiple frames within a packet. I don't want to do that because it's going to slow down. It'll decrease the reliability of the not the reliability. It'll decrease the throughput of UDP and increase the latency. So my goal is to make it so that the server never sends more than a frame. If I have to, I might make it send up to like 4 frames. But I don't want to be sending, 100 kilobytes of data over UDP just to send one message. As soon as I go over a frame at this point, I want it to just send little messages to the client saying there's too much data in this area of the world. Go off and fetch it through TCP because it's just not that important that the client receives those updates in real time. And that will leave bandwidth for me to send the really important updates, like a troll that's standing right near you. That stuff will come through in as quickly as possible. So this is really about creating a back channel for lower priority updates. So at the moment, the server just detects that trolls are things we expect to update often and trees are things we don't expect to update often. And it's using that to decide which channel it's going to send the data through. Is static is going to be equal to true. I'm sure I could have done this with a .contains or something like that, but this is fine. And lastly, why do I keep on doing triple equals? I do not swap well between languages. So let's lastly do this. And we'll just handle the terrain case with an error message. So if that is terrain, this should be a switch, shouldn't it? All right, let's do that. Switch invalidation type. Oh, that was smart of IntelliJ. Case that is all entities equals true. Break static entities, then is static entities. So all I'm trying to do here is detect what kind of a query we're going to send off to the server. Because the server could tell us that both entities and static entities have been invalidated for some reason. I don't know why it would do that, but it's valid according to the protocol. Then in here, we're just going to do a default log dot. No, I want a warning. And in here, unknown, can't handle invalidation type. Okay. So that tells it how to process the... Something's still not right here. Oh, there we go. that tells it how to process how to understand those invalidation types. Yeah, this is a case where a switch statement's good because I do want to handle the case where I don't recognize it. Otherwise, I'm going to add another invalidation type later, and we'll silently drop them without any warning to the calling code. Chunk invalidation.coordinate. Okay, so I just want to dispatch a request out to the server at this point. Request out to entity service. Okay. I don't think I've written anything to make the client hit up the entity service yet. I've obviously got a bit of work to do here getting the authentication right on this side of things. Because the entity service is going to have to know that it is not allowed to send things through to a player that are on the other side of the world. But I've got some ideas for how I'll handle that. I don't want the entity service to have to um, pull up the player on every single request and work out what's near them and stuff like that. So I plan to use basically a permissions model and actually bundle that stuff into a token that gets refreshed as the player moves between chunks. All right, so we dispatch a request out to the entity service. And then in here, I don't know, I'm going to have to copy some code from somewhere else. I'm going to copy the code that does the terrain requests, I suppose. Let's just get a bookmark in there. Bookmark number 1 is in here. Then I can just jump around and try and find my code that loads the terrain. Where does that happen? We get the chunk loading is no longer used. We count it as rendering. I think I do. Somewhere we'll have the text /mesh. Yes, I will be doing mesh-based collision. I'm not sure what AABB is, but yeah, that I'll be implementing collision stuff on the server at some point. Obviously, some big issues to resolve there, but yeah, we'll see how I go there. AABB, I'm not sure what that is. Yeah, let me know in the comment if what AABB is, and it's possibly something I'm familiar with that I'm just not able to bring to mind at the moment. All right, so here is an example of hitting up the server. Oh, this really should be coming from somewhere else. Oh, axis-aligned bounding boxes. Yeah, no, I'll be using, I'll probably be doing axis-aligned bounding boxes to start with, but ideally I'll be using convex hulls for mesh collisions later, but nothing beyond convex hulls. I won't do anything, I won't do any concave stuff. Okay. Yeah, I mean, hopefully axis-aligned bounding boxes would be enough. But it probably gets a bit weirder when you've got structures in there. Yeah, it's something I need to think about. Obviously, it's a lot simpler than convex hulls, but train service. So this is pretty much what I want. believe the entity service is over there. I'm going to need, well, I suppose this should all just go out into a separate class because there's going to be a whole bunch of structures that are needed to both put the request out and interpret the response. So let's start with a new class. Make it entities client. I'm being really bad about singular and plural in my names. Like this is going out to the entity service, so I'm going to call this entity client. Then I'm going to need a constructor. Don't know what that will do yet. Just initialize stuff like this, I suppose. I'm going to have a query method that's going to return a list of entities. C# likes to use initial caps, so let's do that. I'm going to pass it query parameters. Okay. So I'm going to need I'm going to make it a class. I could probably do this as a wouldn't use AABB alone for combat. Yeah, so on the client, I can of course do I can use whatever because I'll be getting access to the to Unity's collision stuff at that point. And I guess yeah, you don't want the monsters, getting too close or too far from you. Yeah, hard to say. Uh, yeah, I'll have to have a think about that and just see where it works. I mean, ideally, I'd be doing proper convex hulls as often as I can. The whole point of this architecture is that um, I'm aiming to just throw more hardware at problems as I can, and as long as it's not ridiculously expensive, I intend the game to be a paid game. Um, no, I won't do client authoritative collisions, but in the client, it can be, um, uh, if we're talking very small, um, uh, so the client needs to be able to predict what the server's going to do. So it does have to implement its own collisions no matter what. If I can imagine a world where the client is doing the client is doing proper mesh collisions, and then the server is enforcing a bounding box collision on top of that. The benefit of cheating at that point is like really minimal. It's you're really looking at it's going to be graphics glitches rather than being able to get some massive advantage out of it. Obviously, something I'd have to try, but no, the client won't be authoritative for pretty much anything. Only for what keys the player is pressing is the only thing that the client will be authoritative for. Okay, so I've got an entity here. I'm not sure if this is meant to be a struct or whatever. I'll leave it as a class for now. Um, so we need entities. I also need a query parameter. Let's let IntelliJ do that for me. Can we move that out? There we go. And move that out. Excellent. Yeah, that's true, Griffith. Although I can imagine having uh, two bounding boxes, like a soft bounding box and a hard bounding box. I mean, I'm really just kind of reinventing standard optimizations for hull collisions there, I guess. Um, yeah, definitely have a think about it. I'm not there yet, is one thing I am willing to say. I think at the moment the pathfinding code from the troll keeps on running until he is in exactly your position at the moment. So anything is an improvement over that. Uh, okay. So query parameters is the first thing I need to implement. Um, so query parameters is going to have, uh, let's pull up that code. I'm going to do my usual trick of having two coding windows here. I'll put this one on the left. I'll put this one on the right. Because I need to basically port my TypeScript code across. We are allowed to request a component. I am going to make this a struct because I want to have a string component. Yeah, I've come out of this is my first game development experience. I've come from a background in all sorts of things, but I've done kind of big data cloud web systems, like big services. I've done transport routing, and I've done embedded software. So I've kind of been across various parts of software development and decided to try my hand at game development. Um, and as I said in my intro video, I've had this idea bouncing around in my head for so long, and so I kind of wanted to spend some time getting something out that would satisfy that itch that I've had. Okay, component we've got is static. These need to be optionals. Um, these need to be public. Boolean is static. Can we do a question mark on that? We can. Nice. Yeah, dream game, first game. I I often think of that other Australian indie developer, Randy, who also went to make his dream game. I mean, he was very young when he started, but yeah, he's obviously backed away from that goal of building Arcana. And he's going much more the right way around it now, I think. But I think that he lacked a lot of experience when he started out. Not just game development experience. I mean, he was reinventing the wheel all over the place. Not that I'm not, but here I am building an MMO server. maybe I'm not doing things the right way, but I think my software development experience is definitely a help. Yeah, obviously, I'd love it if people enjoyed the game. And being an MMO, it's not going to be much fun if it's not popular. But yeah, we'll see how I go. It's not the end of the world if I fail. I will have learnt a lot. So I've got a component, I've got a static, and then I need to do this centroid stuff. Now, I'm about to learn something about C sharp here because normally I would make these. I'd really just follow the JavaScript structure here, but I'm going to end up repeating a whole bunch of code if I've just got these U's and V's when I've already got chunk coordinates. Uh, and um, yeah, so I'm probably going to have to write something in here that can convert this into JavaScript. I was going having 10 years industry experience behind me for. Yeah, it's. I think there are two kinds of game developers. There are people who um, kind of have a really good understanding of games, like the theory behind game design, and they get into it. But I see a lot of people who don't seem to have a huge amount of development experience, and I think it really bites. Um, yes, yeah. I mean, that's a not worrying about whether or not things are perfect. That's a real software thing. Software costs resources to make, and you need to prioritize. It's all about just working out what is worth working on. That's for any software project. All right, so we've got a region. So I'm going to have to define this region. Um, Public region is going to be, I think I can give it the same name here. I'm going to define that to be a struct. Uh, and then this needs two things. It needs a chunk coordinate. Well, I'm just going to give it a coordinate. I'll ignore the y parameter here because I'm going to have to write the serialization code here anyway. Public coordinate. Then I'm going to do, it's just going to be the centroid. And then a public float. Now these are not optional because once you're specifying a region, you must specify both of these. Radius. I'm really not doing well changing coding styles. Okay, that seems reasonable. Now, I'm not sure what the usual pattern is in C sharp for writing JSON serializers. Um, and I mean, I might as well just do this manually. So I think I'm allowed a method on a struct, public string to JSON string, capital letters. And I'm just going to push all the parameters in here. Now, rather than try and get all my backslashes right, I'm going to use a nice little feature in IntelliJ, which is a JSON scratch. I should be able to just copy this code, paste it in there. Um, like this. Like that. wrong with that? That's valid JSON, isn't it? Oh, of course, I need to put these into quotes, fix everything in the file. There we go. These are going to be numbers though, so let's just do that. It'll complain, it's allowed to complain. Copy that. Come back in here and then I will just paste that in. That didn't do what I wanted. Come on, IntelliJ, be nice. Just flatten it out into a single string. Spaces will just become a space. Hey, that's not what I wanted. That'll do. Paste. Being a pain. IntelliJ will normally escape these for me. One last try. What if I tell it that it is just one of those? Oh, here we go. Alt Enter. There we go. $. And now, in here, I can just do, this is going to be centroid dot uv dot u. Just brick something. There we go. V. Oh, this is being such a pain. All my backslash, all my... Give me a second. Let's try that again. Paste. Escape. There we go. Much better. Centroid.uv.u. Centroid.uv.v. I need line wrap in here. That. Comma in there. Plus in there. Quote plus dollar quote. Ah. Something's not right. What's gone wrong there? There we go. We've got our U, we've got our V. I need centroid.qr.q and centroid.qr.r. Wow, what a mess. And it still needs a radius. In fact, this whole thing's meant to have another set of braces around it, isn't it? This is a mess. I thought it escaped more than it did. Oh, right, I need explicit braces. How do I do an explicit brace in one of these strings? Brace literal in C# template string. Oh, double braces. So it might have already done it for me. Yeah, it is more braces than a dentist's office. And it's about to get worse because this whole thing needs to be nested inside another object, which is going to be that centroid. That is going to be this. I need to close that object with a double brace. Okay, so yellow braces are the ones that are actually going to run code inside them. I don't know what the blue braces are. I think I've got something incorrect here. I'm going to put spaces in. So, yeah, we got a chunk. That's fine. That's all fine. But I also need in here a radius. I'm going to have to test this code. A radius is just going to be equal to radius. Brace, radius, brace. Wow. What a mess. This one will be a bit easier. Well, kind of. This is where I almost want to be using a dictionary just so I don't have to do a whole bunch of conditionals. Because I need to be conditional on whether or not this is defined, this is defined, this is defined. So, var result is going to equal an open brace. That's easy. At the end, I'm going to say that the result plus equals a close brace. And in here, we are going to insert a condition. If component not equal to null, then result plus equals string component. No, I've got an issue here. I need to insert commas as well. Yeah, I'm tempted to even the concatenating normal strings is going to be pretty ugly. This is, whether you're on mobile or desktop, this piece of code is truly ugly. I think that in order to get this correct, I'm just going to use dictionaries for both of these functions. It's going to be so much simpler. So is there a dictionary? I assume there's a dictionary, like a Fluent dictionary factory in C#. Fluent dictionary builder, C#. Here's a question, here's an answer. That's not really what they're asking for. Here we go, this is what we want. I like it that someone's complaining that this seems very verbose and difficult to maintain and suggests this instead. Gotta love programmers. All right. var region. It's going to be a new. Is it not called a dictionary in? Oh, it's a hash map or something in C#, isn't it? Now I don't even know how to make a dictionary. C# dictionary is just a dictionary. A new dictionary from string to object. There we go. Region dot add. Oh, then I need a var. Yeah, see, this is going to be just as ugly because it's so nested. All right, I'm leaving that particular piece of code as is, but this other one, which is much simpler, I will do with a dictionary because I don't want to have to insert commas conditionally and stuff like that. So var query is going to be a new dictionary from string to object. It wants me to do it like that. That's all right. So now what I can do is I can conditionally put things into that query dictionary. Let's go query dictionary. Query if component not equal to null, then what do you mean by fluent and fluent dictionary? So fluent is a design pattern. It's most often seen in Java, where you can build a dictionary. Yeah, Json serialization is built into C#. That's right, from dictionaries, which is why I'm going to use the dictionary here. The problem is a dictionary is going to be really hard to build up in the case of the region because it's so nested. I'm going to need dictionaries inside dictionaries. If I had a fluent constructor for a dictionary, it would look like this. It would be something like, let's just go dictionary.builder.add foo, 42 dot add. So you can just chain all of these together. So in here you could go bar, comma, and in here you could then go dictionary dot builder, like that. So it's really easy to construct your dictionaries in line. Whereas otherwise, to create a nested dictionary without a fluent builder like that, you need to go and construct each of the inner ones separately, and you end up with just all these variables, and you need to wire them all up, and it's just quite error prone. So yeah, that's what I mean by a fluent dictionary. A fluent builder on a dictionary is what I really mean. So in here, I mean, I could write my own, but yeah, can't be bothered. Oh, sorry, I'm banging my microphone. Okay, so if component is not null, then the query dictionary dot add, we're going to add component, comma, component. Component a string, yes. Then if is static dot has value. Now I think I can do slightly better than that. I can't remember how to do. I think it's called a placement operator. No, it's a. I think I could say var. No, if is static. The reason I thought it was called placement is I've used it. This is the kind of code I want. It's just is. Okay. If is static is bool is static value. I need to do that. Let's try that. Query dictionary dot add. Checking the state of the bool is static. I am on the server side. So at the moment here, all I'm trying to do is check whether or not, because this is a ternary operator, this is not a ternary value. This can be either true, false, or null. And this is just C# weirdness for checking those three cases in line. So I want to ignore the case where it's null, and then I want to add an is static field to be the is static value. So this just gets rid of a lot of the, I could equally write this as if is static dot has value, and then I could do query dictionary dot add is static dot value, like that, or dot get or something like that. Get? I'm not sure. This is just C# boilerplate for extracting a value out of an optional. And then lastly, I've got a region public. If region is that region value, query dictionary dot add region. My only concern is whether or not this only works for objects, or if I can also do this for Boolean optionals. Because the syntax makes it look like it's an object check. Has me a bit concerned. Query dictionary dot add region, and then I'm going to go for the region value dot to JSON string. Okay. Then in here, I should be able to get rid of all of this stuff. And then someone hopefully posted the actual system text Json Serializer dot serialize. Thank you. Thank you, Fishtopher. Appreciate the feedback. No, I need to do the Json Serializer. Now, this is something that's changed in a recent version of Unity. Previously, when I started this series, I needed to import Newtonsoft myself. But it looks like that's actually been bundled up into Unity recently. And I ran into an issue with this. So what I'm going to do, use a role request. That's not my code, is it? I do use a Json Serializer somewhere. I used to use the Json Serializer somewhere. I don't anymore. Okay, one of these options is right, the other one is wrong. I'm going to try using the built-in Unity one. Serialize. And then I need to go into a writer. Okay, so I'm going to have to find a code example for this. Otherwise, I'm going to spend forever trying to understand the I/O model of C#. So JSON, C#, Newtonsoft. Let's go Newtonsoft. JSON Serializer. Yeah, so just to respond to someone's earlier message, Graphic, the system.text.json.json serializer, I believe, is not available for some reason under Unity. That's the issue I've had in the past. So you have to use the Newtonsoft one. I have no idea why that's the case. Example. Okay, string output. It's, oh yeah, let's use this. JSON convert. Serialize object, query dictionary. Oh, right, that was a lot of code to do very little. In fact, they can serialize an object. Oh, yeah, I can't use an object. I believe it works on a dictionary as well. Okay, I'm gonna have to test that. Well, let's try it the kind of the bullish way, and let's just assume that this is going to work. Thank you for joining us, Fishtopher, and catch you next time. So, I need to build up a query parameter. We need to give it a region. Const chunk coordinate. It's going to be a new chunk coordinate. Yeah, I think that's right. That's meant to be a var. If memory serves me correctly, Unity many years ago used to allow you could actually write your scripts in JavaScript, and they got rid of that functionality, I believe. But I'd kill for that again at the moment because I'm really having trouble switching languages. So here we've got our chunk coordinate is going to go in there, and then I'm going to just pass it an axial coordinate 0. Is that allowed? It probably wants a y coordinate. No. Ah, yes, I need to give it a region. So let's go new region. Oh, these brackets are not required. This one needs a centroid. I think I need to pass it that. Still not happy. Oops, I didn't mean to run that. I was meaning to make sure that it was stopped. Radius. What's going wrong here? Oh, these are meant to be equals. That's a bit better. Oh yeah, there's just the wrong type in region, I believe. Let's get rid of that. I believe I have something in here called a planar coordinate. No, I don't. I need to specify a no. Ah. I don't know what this chunking type is. It's gonna. Hmm. I'm a little bit confused there. I've obviously got two separate sets of types implementing my coordinate systems. Uh, so I'll need to resolve that at some point. Yes, it's whether they are. Sorry. It's whether these are coming from the protobuf. Protobuf has its own coordinate definitions. And then is my terrain package has another one. And I kind of really want these to be, I do want these to be the terrain ones, not the island 54 kind. So I'm going to get rid of that. I've completely broken something. I'm just going to Control Z back out until, yep, here we go. Yep. Presume I can call this that. Nope. I'll just duplicate the code then. I am going to use the terrain chunking because that's just my higher level type. Radius is going to be equal to coordinate system dot chunk radius. Then back in region, I want to use the chunking. Still not happy. Coordinate. Um, uh, oh, yeah, okay, that's just me not understanding C# syntax. Okay. So we ask for the region. I then need to have a is static. Oh, well, there's is static there. Let's go is static parameter, which is going to say if is all entities, then this is going to be null. No, let's say if not is all what is all entities is all entities. Why doesn't it like that? Oh, I've got there it is. Extra brace. So if we're not getting all entities, then I need to say query parameters dot is static. I mean, we should only be dispatching this request if we're either fetching all entities or only static entities. So var fetching entities is going to be equal to is all entities or is static. We'll rename that to is static entities. If fetching entities, then we go and do all of this stuff. Like that. Then, now again, I aim to finish up about midday my time, so that's about just over 15 minutes time. Hopefully I'll get to a nice clean point to finish up somewhere around there. If not, is all entities, well, so if this isn't all entities, then we know that it was a static one. So let's just say is static equals true. Cleaning up this code. So at this point, we have the query parameters. Value is never used. That's correct. A query URL. I need to send through the body at this point. I presume I can send the body through documentation time. C#, HTTP client, send JSON body. So I need to create a new string content. Oh, this is pretty straightforward. All right. post async. I noticed this actually, this is just a little bugbear of mine. That there are two different ways of implementing what they've done here. So get async, I'm trying to pass it, a content type here. This is saying you're not allowed to do that because you're not allowed to post stuff in a get. There's a weirdness in the HTTP spec where it's actually legal to post a body it's explicitly legal to post a body in a GET request, but the server should always ignore whatever's posted to it. I have no idea why they did that in the spec. They even updated it. It used to be illegal to post a body along with a GET request, and they made it explicitly legal, but said that the server should ignore it. Strange. There's probably some use case I can't think of. Okay, so we do the post, and then we pull the message out. And here we go. I'm not allowed to do this. Entities string. Entities string. This is going to be, am I allowed to do that? I'm going to pull in the Unity JSON converter. Yeah, it could be for WebSocket upgrades. I can't remember how WebSockets get established. I think that's controlled by the server, isn't it? The WebSocket. I think it sends back a continue response or something, and then after that, it's technically part of the WebSocket standard. The reason the reason servers have to ignore the body is kind of relevant. It's because caches are meant to be able to cache GET requests based only on their bodies. On their request URL, and to some extent the headers. And it's just defined that caches are allowed to ignore the bodies. Yeah, I don't know the actual reason behind it. Uh, Mesh. So we've got a mesh. That's not meant to be mesh. That's meant to be entities. So for the record, I like that this is a compile error because I think that sending a body through in a get, I've seen people think that they're allowed to do it before. For example, here, a query feels like it should be a get, and people might send a body through on their get, but there's no guarantee that caches will behave as expected if you post that body through. So I like that C# does a compile error on that. Var entities, JSON convert. This seems fair. So time to pull up my code view again, because I do just need to get the basic information for entities across. I must already have an entity type, right? No, I won't necessarily, because I only ever I pull apart entity updates normally. So I won't have an entity type yet. So let's just quickly port that across. So I define an entity as being something that has an ID and this other stuff. From the client side, they'll always have an ID. It's a struct for now. I'll probably change this one back to a class. It's funny, I'm going without boilerplate on the C# side, but I'm tending to go with boilerplate on the TypeScript side. It's a bit back to front, but it is what it is. Public string ID. This is, I don't want to have to write a parser. Uh, I think I think the Newtonsoft JSON parser is smart enough to know that this can come through as a lowercase ID in the deserialization. I'm pretty sure I've done that before. We'll find out. So we need a string name. I don't really use the name anymore. That should go away. To remove this. Public. Yeah, use more libraries in a language you're familiar with. I agree with that. Although what I was referring to there is in a lot of my TypeScript code, I'm writing classes with private members and accessors on those classes, whereas that's a very strange way to do things in TypeScript. People tend to just use plain old objects and just access the fields directly. Whereas in C#, it's more normal to have classes with accessors, and I guess C# has properties as well, but I'm tending to go lighter level in the C#, just define the fields and access them directly. So public, what do I need? I need the transform. I'm going to call it an entity transform. This does need to be serializable. Public entity location. And then public component array components. The transform is going to be a struct. I don't know which type I want to use here. It's a vector3 of some sort. I don't want to define another one. This is for protobuf specific things, so I can't use that. I don't really want to use the Unity engine one because I don't know if it defines things in a weird way. So I'm just going to have to do my own vector3 in here. It's going to be nice and lightweight at least. Public float x, public float y, public float z, serializable. Public. This is all very boilerplatey. Need a location type. Oops, not class. Chunk, a hex, and a y. This is going to be an int. It's all very repetitive. Okay, how close am I? Need to define a component. Components will always have an ID from the client side. Public string ID, public string type, and then public dictionary of string to object, I think. I don't know that C# has like a mixed primitive type, but so I'll just use object. I'm sure that'll work. And that's going to be attributes. I think this needs to be an I dictionary, I think is a thing in C#. Yes. Okay. I will be very surprised if I can do that. This is a lot of code that's completely untested. Okay, yeah, so this is picking up those wrong types now, so I'm going to have a bit of a challenge with getting things using the right type. This is meant to be an island 54 type. So convert position, that's correctly doing that, and this should be returning, I think this is meant to return a Unity Unity engine.vector3. Sorry. Thank you for joining, Griffic. I'm probably going to finish up myself now because the chances of this working first go are pretty much zero, and I'm going to have a whole bunch of wrangling code to take this response anyway and get it into the object hierarchy. So I'll probably be doing that off stream. Thank you very much for joining. And thank you to I think there's a couple of other people in the stream. So yeah, thank you very much. And I'll stream hopefully same time tomorrow and hopefully have more progress before then. So yeah, I will finish up. We're right on 12 o'clock. Catch you all round.